Before we begin tonight's message, guys, I want you to know something. I want you to know I am planning on going to Veridian. Some of y'all are giving me super huge shade about not going. Who am I staring at? I'm not looking at anybody. I'm just making comments. Anyway, but I want you guys to know, if you want a free drink on me, the first person that comes up to me when I walk in the door, wait till I'm inside. Please don't do it outside, okay? That's weird. You're just scaring me. I think somebody's stabbing me. Just don't do that, okay? And whenever I come inside the threshold of the door, it's like right here, the first person to rip off my shoe and smell it, then give it back to me, gets free drink on me. Cool? Don't judge me. I'm just telling you what to do, okay? Just like the game earlier. Rip off my shoes, smell it, give it back to me, I'll buy you a drink, okay? Sound cool? Y'all, what? Fall over? I'll pull out my cane. It'll be okay. It's mobile. It goes in 3 pieces. All right, you guys, here's what we're going to do tonight. We are in part 2 of an awesome message called Restoration. And before we begin, I'm going to pray. Then we're going to talk about why this word matters so much. So, Jesus, we love you so much. Thank you for a great night of Switch. Thank you so much, God, for us being able to do really fun things like Gaga Ball, 9 Square, and some of us, we're learning how to be thankful with the fact that we got stuck with the Commanders. But, God, I pray that you would bless us through this message, that we would learn how to own our part in a situation. We love you and praise you. It's your name. And everybody said? I want to begin with a question, okay? I love starting messages with questions. Have any of you in this room ever been wrong about something? Anybody in here? I see some people are kind of like doing one of these, like, putting the hand back down, But look, you can put your hands down. Maybe for you, you've been wrong about little things. Like what time it is, the answer to a test question, when the world is going to end. And maybe even for you, you're wrong about you and your ex never, ever breaking up forever. I don't know. But maybe it's bigger things that you're wrong about. There are things that you're even more wrong about. Maybe you were caught lying about something. Telling your mom and dad that you cleaned your room, but you shoved everything under the bed and in the closet. Can't believe you. That's terrible. Or maybe one of your good friends shared something deep, something secret with you, and they told you not to tell anybody else, but you still went and told people anyway. I'm not going to make you raise your hand for that one, but listen, I've done that before. I've shared something that somebody didn't want me to. In fact, I'm going to talk about my best friend from last week. Anybody remember his name? Hold on. Wait, what? Sorry, what? Aaron, you guys remember. Listen, I would like to say that I only messed up with my friendship with him one time, but the truth is, I messed up a second time, okay? Here's the story. So me and Aaron, every single year in high school, we would go to Turner Falls, and we would have a boys' camping trip. And here's the thing about me and Aaron. On a regular day, we didn't talk about our feelings, because we're men, We play football and Fortnite and fart, That's what we do. We're men. And so we decided to go on this camping trip, and we were around the campfire, and we began talking about our feelings. Just things that we struggle with, stuff that was going on in our life. And I'm not going to tell you what he shared with me because, frankly, it's between he and I, right? But Aaron shared something really deep with me, super secret. He said, John, please don't tell anybody. I just need to get this out. And I'm like, I got you, Aaron. Don't worry. Like, we're best friends. It's between you and me. I want to help you, bro. Like, we're to keep it that way. But you see, all that changed once I got back to high school. You see, there was this group of friends there at my school that I used to hang out with. And I always was trying to impress them because I wanted to become closer with them. Kind of like at high school when there's different groups of people, maybe one you want to get closer to. Middle schoolers, it's the same thing. And we were talking about other people. Aaron's name came up in the conversation. And because I wanted to impress them, because I wanted to become friends with them, guess what I did? I told his biggest secret. That's exactly right. I blurted it out. I made jokes, started gossiping. Ha, ha, ha. This dude's going through this secret. And guess how Aaron felt? Sad? Mad? What else? Sorry? Upset? Wait, I'm sorry. What was that word? See me afterwards, Merrick. Anyway. Listen, Aaron felt a lot of these things. Here's the deal. Lock in chat real fast. Aaron didn't want our friendship to end over this. He's a reasonable guy. He's a godly guy. We both went to youth group together. He wanted us to still be friends. And so Aaron came to me. He had a conversation with me about it and asked me if I shared the secret. You see, in that moment, All I had to do when Aaron asked me about it was own my part. All I had to do when Aaron asked me was say, yes, Aaron, I am so sorry I shared that secret. Could you forgive me for that? And if I had just done that, guys, our relationship may have taken some time, but it would have been restored so much quicker. But instead of doing that, instead of fighting for restoration, instead of fighting for healing, I instead care more about being right. Instead of just owning my part, I responded the way some of you may. I looked at Aaron and be like, dude, that was such a baby, bro. Okay, it's not even that big of a deal. Like, you never told one of my secrets before, Aaron? Like, what are you talking about? It's not even that huge. I would even sat there and played the victim. I was like, bro, why are you making such a big deal out of this? Now, pause for a second. Picture yourself in Aaron's shoes. If I said that to you after you bore your soul to me, telling me your deepest, darkest secret that nobody else knows, not even your best friend knows, how would you feel if I said that to you? Mad? Hurt? Betrayed? You know, Aaron wanted nothing to do with me. I mean, think about it. What happened in this situation? I mean, the solution was so easy for me. Aaron wanted to make amends, right? The solution was so easy to this. He wanted to let bygones be bygones, but what happened instead? I played the victim. I cared way more about fighting to be right in that situation, to make excuses instead of fighting for restoration. What would have made the whole situation easier? Saying yes. What should I have done before saying anything else in that conversation? What I should have done, students, and you'll want to write this down because it's the main point of the entire message. What I should have done was own my part. And you know, when I think back to that personal story of me and Aaron, just not being a good friend, it really reminds me a lot about this story from the Bible, about the Apostle Paul and Peter. I'm going to give you guys some background context, okay, so you can understand kind of the way these guys worked, okay? See, Peter and Paul, they were both Jews, like Jews from Israel. And you see, before Jesus came down to earth, the people, Jews, they thought that their relationship with God was exclusive to the Jewish people, meaning that they were the only ones that could be right with God. And everybody else, they didn't have that shot. But you see, after Jesus came, he did something radical. You see, after Jesus came, Christianity was no longer exclusive to only Jews, but to everyone, including you and I today. And you see, back when Peter and Paul were doing Jesus' ministry, Christians who were not Jewish were called Gentiles. Everybody say Gentiles. So two groups. You had Jews and you had Gentiles. Jews were the people that Peter and Paul belonged to. They thought that God was only exclusive to them, and Gentiles were all the other people that Jesus came here to save. So, fast forward to our Bible story. Here's what happened. Peter and Paul, they were out in their communities sharing Jesus with the Gentiles, with you and me. They were doing things like inviting them to switch, just like you guys should. They were inviting them to come to church on Sunday mornings to hear Pastor Craig's messages. They were telling how Jesus wanted to save them. And after they got done sharing Jesus with people, Peter and Paul's plan was to meet together in a town called Antioch. And they were just going to debrief and share about all the great things God had done in the lives of the Gentiles. But you see, there was just one little problem with this plan. And the problem had a name, and his name is Peter. Because you see, Peter got to Antioch first, and while he was hanging out there in the town, all of a sudden, while he's sitting there with the Gentiles, he's talking about Jesus, he looks over, and guess who he sees walk through that door? Some of his Jewish friends. He walks in, he sees them, he gets kind of nervous. He's like, oh man, I know that Paul told me that I'm supposed to be with the Gentiles over here, but those are my friends, bro, and I know they don't believe these people are supposed to be saved, and man, forget you guys. I'm going over here. What's up, fellas? What's up? What's going on? And Peter left the Gentiles to go be with his friends. You see, in that moment, even though Peter knew he was supposed to spread Jesus to everybody, not just this group of people over here, guess what he does? He leaves. he bails on Paul. Instead of sharing Jesus with both the Jews and the Gentiles, when Peter's friends showed up through that door, all he cared about was impressing them. And he totally left Paul in the dust. I mean, just imagine being Paul for a second, okay? Walking into Antioch and seeing Peter do this. He's probably feeling betrayed. Maybe Paul's a little bit upset, confused why Peter's doing this. The way Paul felt watching Peter do this is probably a lot how Aaron felt whenever I shared his secret after I told him I wouldn't. But just check out how Paul approached Peter in Galatians chapter 2, verses 11. You can look it up on your phone. It's not on the screen. It's Galatians 2, starting in verse 11. And it says this. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. It says, when Peter met Paul in Antioch, I, Paul, confronted him. Verse 12, for before his Jewish friends arrived, Peter was eating with the Gentiles. But when the Jews arrived, Peter began to separate himself from the Gentiles because he was afraid of what his friends would think. Verse 13, the other Jewish Christians joined Peter in his hypocrisy. You see, it's crazy about that because even in that moment while Peter was starting to address his friends and trying to be cool with them, he caused them to sin and not go along with what Paul was doing. Let's talk about these verses. What happens here? Paul called Peter called him out for not doing what he said he was going to do. Just like Aaron called me out for not keeping his secret. Here's what I want to point out here. When we confront somebody, our attitude should never be to fight to be right. No, our attitude when we confront people should always be to fight for restoration. But the only way we're able to fight for restoration, when we go and have these conversations, students, the only way we're going to have restoration is by owning our part. So that leads to this question right here. How do we own our part? How does this process work? How did I restore my relationship with Aaron? How did Peter get out of a situation with Paul? You see, Peter did what I didn't do at first in my conversation with Aaron. You see, instead of fighting, making excuses, trying just to dust it under the carpet, Peter fought for restoration. Acts chapter 15 is a great place you can see this, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, but instead of fighting to be right, what Peter probably did is that he probably went to Paul one-on-one. Before he made up excuses or played the victim or sat there and just fought to be heard and be right, Peter probably said, Paul, you know what? You're right. I am so sorry for not keeping my word and trying to impress my friends. Could you forgive me for that, Paul? Now, students, doesn't that feel so much better than arguing? Doesn't owning your part right off the bat feel so much better than gossip? So much better than dragging yourself to unnecessary tension with somebody you just met? Doesn't owning your part right off the bat feel so much better than causing all this drama on Snapchat and TikTok? You got this friend group over here, you got that friend group over here. Doesn't owning your part feel so much better? Confessing to a person instead of confessing to an Instagram account that was there for 5 seconds, then left the next day? Which frankly is not confessing, it's bullying is what it is. I love so much how Peter demonstrates this process so well. Because Peter chose to fight for restoration. And because Peter did this, what's so cool is that he and Paul, they made amends. And because they made amends, they were able to lead so many more people to Jesus in Acts chapter 15 and beyond. If you read that chapter this week, Peter actually supported Paul's mission to the Gentiles in showing that he owned his part. I'll ask you this question. Why does restoration matter so much? Why is this word on the screen? Why did I give you guys these keys last week to remember this thing? Why is it so important? Because only restoration leads to the best relationships in your life, with your family, with your friends, and most importantly, Jesus. So what does owning your part look like? Let's say you have a situation like me and Aaron, or a situation with Peter and Paul. what are the 2 things you need to say right off the bat in order to own your part? I'm going to give it to you. Here we go. 2 things. The first thing you need to do is verbally say what part of the situation is your fault. I'll simplify it. Verbally say what is your fault. For example, if you cut somebody in line and they're mad at you, the thing you should turn around and say is like, you know what? You're right. I am sorry for cutting in line. Could you forgive me for that? And that's the second part. Apologize and ask for forgiveness. Because 9 times out of 10, when you do that, you own your part right off the bat, you save yourself so much stress and so much drama and so much group text and so much just crap, to be frank with you. You'll be able to restore that relationship and be right with that person. I mean, that's all I had to do with Aaron. I mean, imagine how much easier, how much quicker our relationship would have been restored if I had just owned my part instead of making excuses, instead of dancing around the issue. Imagine how much better it would be if I had cared more about my friendship with Aaron instead of impressing a group of people when their approval is going to die in a couple seconds anyway. Here's what I want you guys to do this week, practically. Here's how I want you guys to own your part. I want you to do these 2 things. This week, I want to challenge you to have an honest conversation. What I mean is identify that relationship with a person where you have tension or conflict. And this week, I want you to take that first step to make things right. Own your part. Apologize and ask for forgiveness. And the second thing I want to do, I challenge you to spend time with God. Pray to Him. Use that prayer model I taught you last semester. Ask Him where in your life He needs to take accountability. And then reflect on, act on what He shows you through that prayer time and also through reading through the Bible. You guys, this word matters so much because if we truly are to fight for restoration with our families, our friends, and with God, it starts with us owning our part. Because if we are sitting there holding on to negativity and harboring angst towards somebody else, and anger and hatred, how in the world are we supposed to love like Jesus if all we're doing is holding on to that anger? Let's stop fighting for being right. Let's stop making excuses. Frankly, let's stop making all this all about ourselves and about us being heard, about us being right. And instead, let's fight for restoration. When you experience conflict, own your part. Let's pray.